What's up, y'all? My name is Prince and this is Urban Acolyte Gaming. In this video, I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons why I'm leaving Star Wars Old Republic to play Final Fantasy XIV. So for the folks who have been following me for years on my other channel, this was a tough decision. I mean, if it weren't for SWTOR, I never would have come up with Urban Acolyte, and I probably wouldn't be talking about Star Wars here on YouTube. I started following SWTOR the first day it was announced in 2008. I was a closed beta tester, and I was right there on launch day ready to go with my Sith Assassin Tank. It's funny that I almost left SWTOR for Final Fantasy XIV back in 2015, but I tried out 14. I instantly hated it and went right back to SWTOR for a few more years. Well, this time I decided to give 14 a real shot, and now I'm hooked. So here's 5 reasons why I decided to leave Star Wars for Final Fantasy XIV. So the first reason is because the Force is strong with Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm not just saying that either. So all my Star Wars geeks out there, remember in the Clone Wars how Palpatine is secretly looking for these really big kyber crystals to power the Death Star? Well, it turns out that 14 is all about crystals too. Just like how kyber crystals are like these physical manifestations of the Force, the crystals in 14 contain Aether, which is like this spiritual energy. I mean, it's basically the same thing as the Force. Right now, I'm playing A Realm Reborn, which is like the introductory story, and I'm basically tracking down these crystals that are being used to summon these deities who basically feed off of Aether. Think of it like if someone following a dark side religion could use kyber crystals to summon the son of Mortis. And that's actually sort of how the Night Sisters' magic worked in Star Wars too. They could summon the beast forms of the son or the daughter. Now, this is basically the story that I'm playing in 14 right now. People are using the Force to call on their gods to fight the Empire. Oh, did I mention there's also an Empire? Reason number 2 for why I'm leaving SWTOR for Final Fantasy XIV is because Final Fantasy is an RPG created in Japan to attract a Western market. Now, what does that have to do with Star Wars? Well, if you follow my main channel, you've probably heard me say that Star Wars is Wuxia made for the West. Well, Final Fantasy is a Wuxia story, and it's literally made for the West. Now, if you don't know what Wuxia is, it's like Chinese fairy tales that are full of magical wizards, flying kung fu masters, human-like deities, and demons. There's this one Wuxia movie I watched a few weeks ago, and you can literally create that character from the movie in Final Fantasy XIV. Star Wars has lost that Wuxia feeling in the movies and in the games, and I mean, y'all might not like this, but The Last Jedi is the closest thing to a Wuxia story in the new Star Wars movies. Well, I mean, unless Dave Filoni is involved, but we're talking about SWTOR versus Final 14, so I'll get back on topic. My next reason for leaving SWTOR for 14 piggybacks on the previous reason, and that is the story. In SWTOR, you literally spend years running around in the shadow of Revan, and I don't mean that as a pun. The story of Revan impacts everything that leads up to the Cold War between the Republic and the Sith Empire, leading up to the start of the game. By the time the Shadow of Revan expansion wraps up and the story moves back to dealing with Vitiate, well, I had started to lose interest, which is right around the time that I first checked out Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I admit that SWTOR does have a great story, and it is a story-based MMO just like Final Fantasy XIV, but with SWTOR, I feel like there was a change somewhere and some old storylines were just dropped and forgotten. I'm still really new to Final Fantasy, and I admit that it still has that novelty. I've never played a Final Fantasy game, so references to past things in the franchise are brand new to me, but like Star Wars, there's several decades of lore already built into this franchise. The other thing is this. I've managed to avoid a lot of spoilers, even though I watch a lot of videos on YouTube about 14, but I've gathered that one random character you meet in a starter city when you first start playing the game has the potential to show up in one of the later expansions. I just get the feeling that there's a bigger team at Square Enix working on the story than the folks working on SWTOR. I mean, it is what it is. When SWTOR became part of Legends, I kind of felt like it would get the stepchild treatment when it came to resources. But anyway, I'm really digging the story in 14, and I don't really want to see why Malgus is back or why the Jedi and the Sith are back at war. Reason number 4 about why I left SWTOR for Final Fantasy XIV is because Final Fantasy has a better Jedi class. Now, I mean, technically, you can RP as anything and call yourself a Jedi, but Final Fantasy XIV really has a class that uses both magic as a caster and a sword for melee in the Red Mage. Not only that, but Red Mage has a quick dash to close distances and a cool flip to get out of range. If you've played a sorcerer or a sage on SWTOR, then you can imagine how silly you look running around with a lightsaber that you never even use. It always irked me that to use force abilities and to fight in melee range, you had to use the dot spec for a shadow or an assassin. I mean, I once watched a madness sorcerer tank a flashpoint using his bubble to control aggro, and it just looks stupid that he's holding a lightsaber but not using it to fight. And that kind of brings me to my last reason. My 5th and final reason why I've left SWTOR for 14 is because you can play as every class on one character in Final Fantasy XIV. If you think about Star Wars, real Star Wars, there aren't classes. At different times you see Palpatine as a sorcerer, a marauder, and a vengeance juggernaut. Din Djarin the Mandalorian was running around acting like a sniper in one episode of The Mandalorian. All I'm saying is, wouldn't it be nice to play different classes on the same character instead of having 8 different alts? In Final Fantasy XIV, you can do that. You want to play every kind of tank and healer? You can do it. You can do every crafting job in the game if you want. Y'all know I'm into martial arts and I love melee characters in MMOs. And guess what? I can be a monk, a ninja, a samurai, and I can play all of the tanks all on the same character. If I get bored with one job or maybe I don't like it, I don't have to lose all that progress by re-rolling my tune. I can just change my weapon and start playing something else. So those are my 5 reasons for leaving SWTOR for Final Fantasy XIV. Now, there are more things I could say about how awesome the community is or how helpful the people are, but I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I'm playing on a Japanese data server, and I've noticed the Japanese gamers do not talk a lot in local chat. Even still, I'm always running into helpful people, from explaining some of the dungeons to me or clearing high-level mobs for me on the way to some pretty difficult missions. I've also noticed that everyone in the Final Fantasy community online, from the YouTubers to Twitch streamers, they've all been super cool and very helpful. Honestly, seeing the online presence of the game on YouTube and Twitch was a huge factor in me finding a new MMO to play because, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a YouTuber. If I play a game that I really like, I'm probably going to want to talk about it on YouTube. And let me tell y'all, I really want to talk about this game. The story is amazing. So if you want to know more about the game, or maybe you're an experienced player who wants to see someone experience the game for the first time, I'm going to continue making videos about my progress and my thoughts and my reactions to the story as I go through it. So be sure to check back for more videos on my adventures through Eorzea. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, hey, you could do that too. But anyway, that's all I got for this one. So thanks for watching. Y'all keep on breathing, and may the light of the crystal be with you always.